Hey everyone. Okay, so in this video we are finally on to treatment technologies. I've got a lot to cover in this. I'm going to probably race through this beginning part of old technologies versus new technologies. Where I really want to get is to here that these new technologies could legitimately change our species. So there's kind of a lot to build to, but let's get there as kind of quickly, but hopefully coherently as possible. Okay, so we've got traditional treatment technologies, and we've got some new ones that have developed over just the last. I mean, really, we're on the cutting edge of this, which is why it kind of freaks me out. It should freak you out a little bit. Try not to panic, but also try to be aware that we're entering a completely new phase of human existence. It's hard to not freak out when I tell you that. All right. So to begin with, treatment technologies. Medication. I take cholesterol medication. Most Americans nowadays do take some sort of medication to prevent or to deal with a long-term problem. Medical devices here, I'm talking about things like artificial organs, prostheses, regulatory devices like pacemakers. Whereas these change our chemistry in order to return our body to health, these kind of change our bodies. No judgment about any of these things. This is what we need to do to be able to, again, get ourselves back on par with our hunter-gatherer ancestors. Surgery as well. Surgery, I've had ACL repair surgery. These are things to get our bodies back to the way our bodies are supposed to be. It's important to remember that these things are advances over the technology that our hunter-gatherer ancestors had, but they are not about advancing the quality of our life relative to what our hunter-gatherer ancestors had. Okay. The newer technologies that we want to look at now are gene therapy and nanotechnology, both of which sound kind of freaky. They should freak you out a little bit. You will probably benefit from both of these, but as with everything that our society presents to you, it doesn't mean that you want to just to say, oh, society's presenting this to me and therefore I should reject it because society doesn't care about my happiness or my fulfillment. Society does not care about those things, but that doesn't mean you don't want to use the resources society presents to you as resources to building your own happiness and fulfillment. Okay, so gene therapy, basically what this is a new technology for looking at genes that have the tendency to create certain diseases and modifying those genes. It's an absolutely amazing technology that is going to create the potential for happiness and health for people who did not have it before. Really important. I do not want it to come off in any way that I'm against these things. It treats diseases at the level of our genetic code. And it's incredible, absolutely incredible. Like, you want to consider this on the same level as artificial intelligence and climate change in terms of it being species revolutionary level of technology. Gene therapy, the technology is called CRISPR. There are tons of resources that can explain to you how it's done, but it basically goes in and surgically cuts out and replaces sequences of genes with genes that are sequences of base pairs that would allow the gene that was going to create a disease to not create a disease. It's absolutely incredible. Okay, gene therapy. Nanotechnology is exactly what you think it is. It is super small machines being put into your body to do things. It's currently being used right now. Its primary application so far has been drug delivery. So nanotechnology being put into your body to automatically release medicines at appropriate times, which is just incredible. It's also being used, I know we're in treatment right now, but it's also being used for diagnostic purposes, what are called smart pills that use nanoscale sensors to detect diseases before their symptoms become apparent to the patient. So incredible stuff. All right, those are the technologies that we're basically talking about when we talk about treatment. What I want to do now is talk about the pros and cons. Pros, super simple. They make you healthy when you haven't been healthy, and that's great. Cons. First of all, we live in a capitalist society. That's not the right way to say that. Almost all industrial societies, really all industrial societies, all the Western industrial societies are capitalist. We have a more unfettered, unregulated capitalism when it comes to healthcare than most other societies, and therefore our healthcare is very expensive relative to other societies. And so that's a big con. Second con is that these things allow us to not change our lifestyle. So I mentioned before, I'm on medication for high cholesterol. I have, when I was diagnosed with high cholesterol, I decided, oh, okay, so I need to reduce saturated fats. But my aunt, whom I love, said she was diagnosed with high cholesterol. She got put on medication for it. She's like, I can eat whatever I want now, which is fine. But it is worth being aware of the fact that our diet, as we've already talked about in this class, doesn't just affect our physical health, it also affects our mental well-being, our mood, our ability to cognitively function well. And to the extent that I'm taking a medication that allows me to not have to change my diet, it's great that I get to eat the foods I like, but it allows me to continue to do things that are detrimental to my mood, and our happiness is to an extent made up of the moods that we are in throughout the day. If I feel lethargic, if I feel depressed because of me eating lousy food, this medication that allows me to do that is because it allows me to not change my lifestyle. It allows me to stay potentially depressed or potentially functioning at a lower cognitive level than I would otherwise be if I changed my lifestyle. So that's not good. Third and finally, this is the one that I said I wanted to get to. There are legitimate concerns about these two therapies and the potential for us to, I don't want to make it sound like this is a nightmare scenario because it's not necessarily, but it also potentially is. What we're talking about is the possibility of not just treating disease, but potentially upgrading us as a species, which doesn't sound bad. It's not just gene therapy, it is genetic manipulation, so genetic engineering. So instead of me being this version of Chris, we change out my genes that would allow me to therefore have more muscle mass or a better memory or whatever sort of cognitive or physical functioning might be desirable. But at that point, you start to change us from we're still going to look like Homo sapiens, but Yuval Noah Harari, in his book Homo Deus, makes the argument that you start changing us into a species that did not exist before. So there are a couple of problems with that. Problem number one is that in upgrading us to something different, he says from Homo sapiens to Homo Deus, he uses Deus because we're talking about creating a new kind of life, a new species, which is, generally been considered over the course of human history the province of the gods. You upgrade us into something different, and it is difficult to predict if we are going to want the same things that we wanted when we were Homo sapiens. It's possible that it is just everybody is a bit smarter and a bit more physically capable. It's also possible that we develop ourselves in ways that we are changed in ways that we value things that are different than you and I value right now. That could be a good thing. We could value cooperation more than we do right now. We could value kindness more, but it could also, there's no guarantee that that's the case. So that's a potential problem. The other problem along with that is that it is very unlikely in American capitalism that these upgrades would roll out evenly to everybody. The odds are the people who can afford them first are going to get these upgrades, which is going to mean not just an upper class versus a middle class and a working class and a lower class. We're not talking about socioeconomic classes. We're talking about kind of having superpowers, or potentially, and that being unevenly distributed. And what's going to happen if people with more resources, more financial resources, also have more cognitive resources? If they already are dominating society, what's to say that they don't further rig the system to make it impossible for those of us who don't get those upgrades at the same time to be able to have the same opportunities that we have now? Super dystopian, and I'm not saying that's a guarantee. I'm saying that if we change human beings into a different species, we don't know what the consequences are. But we don't have a great track record with creating technologies and not deploying them. So these things, again, it could be positive changes, but there's no guarantee of that. And it's worth us being aware of that, because legislation that is going to govern how these things are deployed is going to be created over the next 10 to 20 years. You want to be a little bit educated. You don't want to be a little bit educated. You want to be a lot educated about how you would want these things to be governed. Okay, super kind of intense, kind of cool, but also kind of terrifying. That's it for our discussion of treatment technologies. In the next video, so that is theme 1, right? The pros and cons of our technologies. In the next video, we're going to cover theme 2 and theme 3. How do these technologies change us? And even if we don't adopt a technology, it still affects us. We're going to deal with both of those in the next video. I'll see you then.